Hello, everyone. Fancy here. I'm coach of the West Virginia Wingulls, and today me and Coltrainz are going to be doing the Hoenn Power Rankings.
Hello, hello. All right. Do you just want to jump right into the power rankings, or do you want to speak a little bit about the division first?
I think we could just jump right in and just go from there.
All right, then
Talk
first
about it as we
up,
go.
we should have the Hungry Sharpedos. Uh,
Okay.
Pretty middling team here, right? You got eighth and ninth between us.
Yeah. I don't know. It seemed just like borderline average team from what I can get. Like looking at picks like 1 through 5, I thought this team was going to be a lot like more scary. Just looking at it, had momentum to get Mega Arrow in very well, and I think at least from my perspective. Like I think Talonflame's fine here because it hits a certain speed tier and it has momentum and it added well kind of another defogger, I guess. But I feel like from Fortress down to Misdreavus, the picks were just kind of plugging holes using points. I feel like they could be used better, but I think that if they play around the first 5 picks well enough, that it's still going to go well for them regardless.
Yeah, looking at this team, specifically something I saw is, I mean, there's a bit of raw power, but having Rotom Mow being the only thing that's going to be breaking through
Mm-hmm.
your bulky waters and missing the dragon type of your fairy dragon steel core entirely and having only
Mm-hmm.
Cleffa being able to hold that defensively. I mean, Slowking is going to be able to eat maybe one. Not Slowking, Slowbro is going to eat maybe one, two at best Draco Meteors, depending on what's
Mm-hmm.
dropping them. And I think that's going to really drive straight through this team if they have to ever fight Dragapult or anything like that.
I just feel like this team's going to struggle in general with wall breakers. Like I don't get me wrong, I think it's going to win games just through the pure power of Nidoking, Mega Arrow, or Shifu. It's going to be able to get in, set
Hmm.
up, especially off like slow momentum through Fortress or getting Slowbro in off a good teleport timing. I think that this team can do well. It's just a matter of playing very well around momentum. I also think that it seems very physically reliant offensively. I know there's like Nidoking and Rotomo, but other than that, it's very hard for him to really wall break.
Right? And like I get why it's here, but Fortress seems a little bit redundant. I feel like that could have
Hmm.
been like a better pick overall
Yeah.
for this team. Like, understand it's here to help, set hazards and remove them, but
Yeah, it's not really the best steel type.
no,
Although
it,
not
it doesn't
having.
have any wish support, nothing like that. I mean, I
Hmm.
guess I think does Chansey get wish? I think Chansey might get wish,
Yes,
but
Chansey and Clefairy both. But again, they're not exactly the ideal wish passers. So
yeah, overall pretty middling team. Uh,
yeah.
I could see it getting to playoffs. I don't think,
Hmm.
it'll win, but overall, it's
Yeah.
all right.
I feel like a lot of the middle ground teams they could be like swapped out in different positions because all of them have holes. But we'll go through that.
All right, you think you're ready to move on to the next team?
That sounds good.
All right, Michigan Mawwowls.
So it's kind of funny. A lot of these teams we appear to have like similar rankings towards. I think we both kind of have the same idea about what we want in a team. But at my first like glance of this is for the Michigan Mawwowls, their switch-ins to fighting types are very, very poor. Like they have Corviknight, which is a flying type, but it's also neutral because of steel. You always have Slowking, but any like fighting type with U-turn, like a Mienshao or a Fernape or anything like that, it's going to be very hard to switch into these things with your flying types being Mega Pidgeot, Corviknight, and your fighting switch in, basically forcing Slowking to go physically defensive, which is something that it doesn't necessarily want to always do.
Right. And I understand Miltank. It's just it seems like this team outside of Corv and Slowking, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like it's missing a lot.
Hmm.
I feel like Corviknight's gonna get whittled down very quickly. Like
See, that's the thing.
and then once it's gone, I think specifically when I looked at this team, uh, that stood out to me the most was even though Slowking's got Regenerator, you got Jungle Healing on Zarude. It's just gonna get whittled.
Hmm. Yeah, this team also, like, as much as I love Miltank, I think Miltank is a great mon, but like it feels really reliant upon Miltank and Slowking being well and being able to wall everything that comes at them. And another thing that I noticed that I think is going to be a big problem for this team is that they're full of wall breakers and they don't really have any sweepers in any way. Like they have scarfers that can go through, but they don't have very many set up sweeping options.
Yeah,
Like,
like Kieran Black can't D-Dance or Skill Shot in our current format.
mhm. And that's another thing, like Corviknight, like, yeah, it can run bulk up sets, but like if you're using that as one of your main walls, having a bulk up offensive set's going to be very tough if you have to bring like a certain kind of Victini set because you don't have the answers to fairy types very well, or just I think there's certain things like that that could be improved, and the lack of poison type is also really bad.
Yeah, lack of poison type hurts.
Yeah, it's just going to be reliant on momentum from it, looks of it, and then not having the greatest hazard clear doesn't really um feel like it's gonna turn out very well. I feel like it just needs to um keep the momentum and be able to keep stealth rocks off the fields, but I'm not sure how likely that is to happen.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that's about it for the Mawwows. You ready for the next one?
Yep.
I have the Portland Porygons. Fantastic, by the way, using Portland.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Only true men of culture have Portland as uh, their city.
Yeah. Although the lack of Portland and Porygon representative in the logo kind of threw me off a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's okay. This team, at least, it feels really awkward, at least from my perspective. I'm a big Mega Heracross fan, and I'm glad that they have sticky webs in Vikavolt, but it just feels like they're going to struggle with a lot. Like, this team very much struggles with breaking through bulky waters, and considering you have a Darmanitan Galar, like gonna want something to switch into those bulky waters, and you don't have a grass. You do have Vikavolt, but I feel like this team's gonna be reliant on that, and it's not gonna always want to come.
Yeah, specifically not being able to break bulky waters for Darmanitan, like you said, huge issue. Something for me that I really don't like about this team is you have Dragapult at 142, you have Swell at 125, and then you drop straight to Darmanitan, and then
Hmm.
Darmanitan drops to Heatran.
Yeah.
Big gap in speed, and it just doesn't get anything but slower from there. I mean, Hitmonlee does get unburdened, but you're not going to be bringing him every game. He's
Hmm.
not like an auto slot in like Dragapult probably will be most of the time.
Yeah. And then
And
Burden feels kind of like a niche pick for this, but
right,
again, this team, similar to the last one, just has a lot of really special breakers that I see. There aren't really many sweepers, which is I feel like each like great team should have at least like one sweeper or like setup
right,
sweeper that they can
something to
have in
threaten.
consistently. Hmm. Now
Uh,
about the speed tiers, I also don't like them, but I think that Vikavolt can help to some extent. It's just a matter of keeping webs on the field.
what do you think about no fairy type?
See, now that I'm not a big fan of, especially considering their psychic type is Bronzong as well, and they also lack reliable recovery outside of Mandibuzz. And I think that if you're gonna be reliant on a bulky steel and psychic type, you want to have reliable recovery, which this team does not. But I do like the Trapinch. Just I like seeing that mon, but having it as your sole ground type is also probably not going to be very well for you.
I think that's the crux of the issue with this team, right? There's a
Mm.
lot of Mon that are the sole like gatekeepers to losing some way. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
And in
I've
battle, you're not going to be able to keep them all up 100% of the time.
yeah, and that's a thing. So like, say you don't want to bring sticky webs one week, or like it doesn't look ideal. Like there is always Trick Room Bronzong, but again, that's more of a niche pick, especially since there's a big gap. Like if you were to run Trick Room, everything from like Vikavolt to Mega Heracross, there's no speed tier there. Like it also, you don't really like Trick Room is still kind of awkward and Sticky Web is still kind of awkward as well because you're going to need to beat the flying types, which again, this team doesn't really do that well because it's, in my opinion, too reliant on Bronzong.
Yeah, I feel like the thought is here. I just think there needs to be one or two mons that are switched out,
Hmm.
and then this team
Yeah,
could be really good.
I feel like a good grass type would go well, or even something of value type, like an 8-point grass type, or even like a Tangler or something of that nature.
I agree.
Yeah, that's all I have for this team. You want to go on to the next one, unless you have anything you want to add?
No, that's about it. Just some.
So I see this is your number one team. I do like this
Yes,
one a
I
lot.
do like the
But,
St. Louis Scissors. And since it is my number
so,
one, I'm gonna start off with why I think it's number one.
okay.
So I did most of my ratings off of like a rubric that I'll be releasing after this video goes live to the coaches. Um, and this team just kind of hits everything that my rubric was looking for, right? Fire, water, grass core, uh, fairy, dragon, steel, fire, fighting, psychic, dark, perfect amount of hazard setters, removers, ground immunity, water killing. I really like the speed tiers all across the board. Everything works together really cool. And I think there is some cool tech that this team will be able to pull out at the end of the day. Uh,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
uh,
I think.
specifically, I gave it bonus points for having Coco and Raichu together as well.
Mhm. See, I personally have never used that combo before. I imagine that that's very well. The only like thing that I can say, looking like from my perspective on, it's more of a Mon bias for me more than anything else. I'm not the biggest Obstagoon fan, just because of the lack of momentum. I feel like this team needs a little bit more momentum, and as much as the Dragon Fairy Steel Core is there, I wouldn't necessarily consider Mega Altaria Dragon type because very rarely does it actually run the Dragon coverage.
Yeah, that is true. But at least for me, when I look at Mega Altaria, it starts Dragon, right? If it was
Hmm.
their only fairy, then I'd probably dock here. But Coco's there,
Yeah, that's
so
a great point.
you know, Coco can at least hold the fairy end of it. I get it. It is like a fairy type that's also weak to fairy, which is a bit odd. But
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
I
I do.
I'm willing to give it full points.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do really like this team. I think Blastoise can be very well, especially with the adding of Flip Turn. I think being able to get in Mamoswine as many times as possible is going to be very crucial for this team to be able to keep winning games. And I also like the hazard setup, like you were mentioning. It has spikes, toxic spikes. It has Stealth Rocks and Ferrothorn, Mamoswine. Like it has a bunch to set up, and
Even has
I'm not
sticky web
sure
with
if
charge a bug, I'm
yeah.
pretty sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that if Charjabug did. I couldn't remember. But the only another crutch that I would say, other than the dragon typing, which isn't really even that big a deal because Mega Altaria can take dragon hits, is the lack of real earthquake switch-ins outside of Moltres. Like you have a neutral and Ferrothorn, it's just you're going to have to keep a lookout for bulky grounds, especially since Tapu Koko and Alolan Raichu are going to be two prominent members of your team.
100%. I think as long as they can play around that, though, they'll do
Hmm.
fantastic. I definitely expect to see this team in the playoffs, and I'm even willing to give it number one for me.
Yeah, to do as well. I think it should be there.
All right, enough praising them. Let's move on to our next team.
Okay.
Here we are with the United U-Turners.
Yeah, unfortunately, no logo for there. Got a little frowny face in there
I'm pretty
for
sure they
me
had
for
a
that one.
logo. I'm pretty sure I found it at one point.
Oh, did they? Well,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
if
it's
y
two scissors.
shoot. Well, if you are the coach of the United U-Turners, I apologize for that. I must have missed that. But since you started the last one, I'll go ahead and um start on this one here. So, as like I'm looking at this team now, it just doesn't feel like there's an A tier mon. Like Melmetal's like really good and all, but it doesn't feel like this has like a standout mon. Like it feels like Cinderace is the second best mon, and I don't necessarily feel that's the best thing. That, and I'm also very biased towards Celebi. It might just be me not being able to use it very well, but I find Celebi very tough to use because like it has the setup through Sword Stance, Calm Mind, Nasty Plot, Stealth Rush. Like it has all the tools, but I think being quad weak to U-turn is a real big turnoff, especially on a team that's lacking real reliable recovery outside of the Mega Auto No Wish Pass.
I personally think Celebi is a sick Pokemon if you're in Gen
Hmm.
3 or 4,
Yeah.
but we aren't here, right? That being said, Celebi is an improvement. I had this team bottom last 16th before the free agent transactions.
Mhm.
Um, because before you Celebi was here, there was nothing to kill Bulky Waters. It just didn't have an
Mhm.
electric or a grass type. So I'll give it that. It is an improvement, but it's just
Mhm.
missing so much across the board. I feel like each individual member wants to be something, doing something, but it doesn't really work with anyone else too well. Um, you got your type cores there, but you only have two setters and two removers,
Mhm.
which Cinderace is one of your removers with court change.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this team has to be played more hyper offensively, like looking at it. And I also feel that Doublade was kind of an awkward pick. I don't know what happened with the points there or anything like that, but it just doesn't feel like it flows in that well. It's a steel type. It has a similar speed tier to Melmetal, and you already have another
hmm
ghost type in Hoopa. And your team's already pretty weak to knockoff, so it just seems kind of odd to me with Doublade being there.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I just don't know what this team does well. You
Yeah.
know, I could
It's,
see it win games with like maybe
mhm.
Suicune sets up a couple Calm Minds.
Yeah.
You know, uh, there's no rain for Omastar. Like it just feels
Yeah.
weird here. I don't
It's
know.
kind of opposite of the other teams. Like the other teams don't really have setup mons, and this team has a lot of setup mons, but they don't have any ways to set up on.
Exactly. Like there's no like there's kind of bulk, but like there's also not. I don't know. I don't really like Mega
Hmm.
Audio either.
Yeah. Now, in like a point system, if you could get like 80 points for drafting Mega Autono, I think that that's fine. But I think in a tiered format, like you should
hmm
probably stray away from him.
Yeah, it's like my biggest issue is I just don't see how this team wins.
Yeah,
If
just
I
really
if
awkward.
I was having to fight this team, I'd be like, how do I lose? I'd be like, Subsium, Suicune, and maybe like DD Flygon. So if I have freeze dry, I win. You know?
Yeah, it's just it has a problem to a lot of typings. One that that stands out to me is flying type. Like
hmm
you have Melmetal and a Doublade to an extent, but neither of them really want to switch into a close combat. What I guess Doublade does, but even then, it's not exactly ideal.
Yeah, I think this team could definitely benefit from some more trades
Hmm.
uh,
I
as the
think
season
so as
goes
well.
on.
Make sure
Uh,
to pick up an electric type.
yeah, like an electric type, something that can get rid of hazards. Man, Zapdos
Hmm.
would do so crazy on this team. I don't think it's around still, but
Yeah,
it would fix so much.
it really would, honestly.
All right, think they're good to move on.
Yep.
All right, Cincinnati Cinchinos, another one that I know has a logo, but no logo
Uh,
sad.
yeah, I looked at the doc on the team info page and went based off that. I didn't go back through the Discord. So those are errors on my part, so I apologize for that.
That being said, I want to speak on this one a little bit because I do know this coach personally, and I
Okay.
helped you make their team a little bit. I gave him fifth, but in my heart, this feels like a three team as well. It's
Hmm.
just they didn't fit as well into my format. I
Yeah.
think this team has some crazy stuff going on. A really hard to break defensive core with a weakness to Earthquake, but
Yeah.
Rillaboom is right there to patch that up. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
This was one of my favorite teams.
mhm. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it even has like the wish pass for Registeel. I think the only
Hmm.
thing that's really holding it back is that it lacks some hazards.
Yeah.
It has three removers, which is nice, but
Hmm.
only Registeel and Toxapex set hazards up.
Yeah, that is. It doesn't feel very ideal from it. Again, I have it so high just because like I think the speed tiers are great. Like it hits everything that I want really well. It covers 100 to an extent because it has Latios to outspeed and it forces
Mm.
100s to go positive speed nature if they want to outspeed our Sharpedo. And I also like that I'm actually not going to be 100% on this. I'm pretty sure that grassy terrain doesn't affect Thousand Arrows. Is that correct? Like it doesn't cut it in
I
half?
am pretty sure it doesn't cut it in half as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I
That's
feel
something I
like,
noted as well, which is really good.
mhm, yeah. I also think that having um, offensive water for this team was very good. Again, I really like the Sharpedo pick here. I think it covers a lot for his team, and I'm also a big fan of Mega Manectric, especially at the value that it has. Even though there's no hidden power, and that's probably going to hurt. I think that getting in momentum through Regenerator on Toxapeck and Wish Pass and everything, it's going to be able to stay alive and be able to click some Thunderbolts or any
Yeah.
other move that it brings.
It's also really sick, I think, with Incineroar having
Hmm.
because they're able to Volt, Switch, and Parting Shot back into each other. Uh,
Hmm.
specifically, actually, which is kind of crazy. Normally, Intimidators, right? If the other Pokemon's just clicking SD, they only go like even if you're switching out.
Hmm.
But Manectric Volt turning and Incineroar Parting Shot actually means that it loses value SDing.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
got
know.
Intimidate core. It's just got a lot of cores that are really cool.
Hmm.
I wish Latios was like Latios, but outside that, right? I think he was
Yeah.
already taken by the time they got
Hmm.
to draft it.
I'm trying to think here. I had um oh, they don't really, other than Zygarde, I could see a problem being breaking through physically um defensive walls being a problem
Mm.
here because outside of like Zygarde, Incineroar, and Rillaboom, which I mean those are great, don't get me wrong, but I think like there's just it feels like there's a physically offensive like fighting type missing from this team.
Yeah, I feel like Shinshino could have been that pick, but drafting
Hmm.
drafting your mascot, I guess. So I can't really
Yeah,
blame him
yeah,
that
no, you can't
much.
bash him for it. Yeah, don't blame him there.
Wonderful
But,
team. Like I said,
hmm.
not a whole lot wrong. Like I said, the thing I really docked him for was the hazards and missing a fighting type.
Hmm. The only problem I could really see for this team is in the scenario where you have to play passive through Toxapeck, Florges, and Registeel if they do have like substitute like setup mons. Like I feel like setup could hurt this team.
Uh, does Floor just get haze? I know Toxapex does.
I don't think Florges gets haze, no. I think it's just like it does get defog, but I don't think it gets any haze. I could double check that real quick, but
Yeah, but it's not too
pretty
big of
sure
a
it does not.
not too big of an issue. Uh,
Yeah.
I like this team. I could see it going far. I don't know if it'll win. It could. I think it depends on who gets into the playoffs ultimately.
Yeah, it's just gonna be matchup dependent.
Hmm. All right, good to move on. The Sin City Smeargles.
So we both kind of thought of this as the middle ground team, similar to the Sharpedos. Like it has a lot of things going for it. One thing that I really docked it for, like the speed tier struggle. Like I get that it has a Zeraora and a Torn, but between like 80 and 120, it kind of gets awkward if you don't have like very high speed Comfy or like Scarf Chandelure. I feel like between 80 and 120, like those speed tiers might bring trouble to this team because they could go Adamant or Modest or.
Yeah, I think my notes on speed was it has an extremely high end, and then it drops to 195, and then just 94 to 81 is completely uncontested.
Mhm.
And there are mons that are around 85 that are powerful Pokemon, stuff like Nidoking, etc. You know.
Yeah, like you look at last team, like a Rillaboom type. Although against this team, you have a Mega Venusaur, but just like those type of mons.
The one that comes to my mind immediately is you might be able to get away with Adamant like Urshifu single. You know.
Hmm. Yeah, base 100 mons, like a Rip Star Raptor for never being drafted, but Staraptor would be like those type of mons there.
Yeah, and
But yeah.
outside of Torrentee, Venusaur is not ground resist. You know, it's poison type. Big
Yeah.
ground weakness on this team across the board.
Yeah, that's very true. I also noted that their hazard removal wasn't the best, as
Mm,
it was only
only two of
Torn
them.
and Torn and Comfy. Yeah, and their rockers were there were only two of them. So the hazard control on a team that has Chandelure Torn could be better. But,
I think technically three, right? I think Metagross gets Stealth Rocks, right? Does it?
oh yeah, Metagross does. Metagross,
So
Swampert, and
and then Smeargle.
oh yeah, that's my bad. Forgot about Smeargle. I guess there is webs on this team too to help cover speed potentially.
Yeah, it's there. It's just you're relying on Smeargle then, which once again
Hmm.
is the mascot, so I can't really dock him that much for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of mascot picks here.
And
I
I feel
just
like
now
I feel like we
noticed that
kind of
actually.
I feel like we kind of been hating on this team. I don't hate this team. Actually, it's got a lot
Yeah,
of
no,
nice
no, no.
stuff about it, right? We both
Hmm.
rated it ninth and eighth respectively. Uh, it hits everything else, you know, like grounded poison. There's a bunch of other really nice things this team's got going. Priority on Comfy. Like there's really good things. It has all of its cores, you know.
Hmm.
It even has its bulky water killers, like I said. But the hazard game being so weak, and the speed tiers being that bad, and I don't feel like there's the most cohesion going on.
Hmm.
Drops it into about the middling tier.
At least from my like point of view, it feels like this like Torn is going to be forced into heavy duty boots a lot because it's going to need to stay alive to be able to get in like Venusaur to get recovery and everything.
Comfy's also going to be forced into heavy duty boots as well, for
Hmm.
similar reasons.
And with the lack of wish pass, but like you said, there is positives to this. I'm a big fan of Gudra. I think that it's a great mon. It hits really hard. It can be bulky, and I think Gooey is going to be. It could also potentially help with the speed tier. Now that I'm actually thinking about it, but there's a lot of like,
It's conditional, right?
yeah, Sap Sipper's normally the way to go. But if you have a Mega Venusaur, then you're able to like switch more towards the other abilities like Gooey.
All right. I think that's about it for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Space Zigzagoons, both are
Ah,
number
rip.
16.
Ah,
Can you believe Mega Galite is sitting here at number 16?
I can. Just looking at the rest of the team,
It
unfortunately.
starts off so good. Look at that. Mega Galite,
Hmm.
Garchomp, heck, even into Weavile next.
It's
What
just
some power.
the Conkeldurr pick. It doesn't make sense to me. Other than if you're using it to be its defogger. Like that's the only aspect I could see Conkeldurr ever being on this team, especially since you already have a Mega Gallade.
And the thing that really did this team in for me, right? As I looked at it, right? I'm like, oh, wait, you're missing a grass type. That's fine, right? Um,
Yeah.
you're missing a fairy type again. I remember we just harped on that, how bad that can be. I'm
Hmm.
like, all right, you're missing your grass type. And I look at the rest of this team, and your Toxapexes, your Vaporeons,
Hmm.
your Alomomoles of the world are celebrating.
Yeah,
You know?
there's nothing to break through bulky waters, and its Earthquake switch in is a Vespa Queen. It
Hmm.
like there's a lot of gaping holes to this. So like you said, something like a Thundurus or a Zapdos or just anything to break through bulky waters.
Yeah, anything at all. I mean, the hazard game is
Hmm.
fine. Uh,
Yeah, removal
ground
not so much,
poison.
but
Speed
it
tier is
just feels
fine. It's
like.
just a lot, right? Like if only my Milotic got Wish, right? Then
Hmm.
this would be team would be better because then you'd be able to like Wish to like Copperajah or something like that.
Hmm. I
I
guess
don't know.
Flip Turn does help it now, but it just feels like there's a lot of repeated awkward picks like Conkeldurr with Mega Glade, and then Copperajah, I think's how you say it,
Yeah,
and
Copperajah.
Steelix.
That being said, I don't see this team going like 0 and 9, 0 and 10,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Inevitably, Gallade is going to hit Swords Dance or Garchomp, same, and then Scale Shot. Like inevitably
Yeah,
this team will get a win.
it's
I
hard
just
to
don't
see
see
where.
it.
Yeah,
And I don't see enough to get into playoffs at all.
yeah, no. It's like you're gonna win a game or two just from Mega Glade hitting close combat Zen headbutt and stab, and then Scarf Blacephalon coming in and killing with Scarf. But it's very, very matchup dependent for this team, and I hope that they use some transactions because I would love to see Mega Glade do well and thrive on a team.
Hmm. It's it's so close to being
Hmm.
higher up, which
Yeah.
is funny because if you think it'd be so close to being, this team could easily end up like sixth. I feel like just
Hmm.
with one or two trades, but like it's just so awkward right now.
It is just a matter of getting in and fixing the team appropriately.
100%.
But that's all I have for this team.
Once again, I love drafting the mascot. I did it last season. Didn't do it this season myself personally, but
Yeah. With
I'm
mine being
fortunate.
Wingull, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Pelipper and Wingull right here.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I didn't realize that till just now. All right, the Munchlaxes. We got a bit of a disparity on this one.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and talk about this one a little more for myself. So I'm a big fan of balanced teams, and I think that's what this says for me. I mean, even from like my perspective here, its earthquake switch-ins are obviously very negligible, being Landorus and Electros, but I feel like this team can and should do well given like what it can do. I think Mega Houndoom is going to get a lot of kills this season, whether it be um, like cuz Roserade stacks hazards or you get momentum in from Landorus and Jirachi. And I also really like that Hitmontop gets triple axle now. I think that being able to hit flying types for this team is going to be kind of difficult. So if you play well around this team, I feel like it can be very, very successful. And I also like the potential Trick Room option with Gafagrigus with Ice Q and
Hmm.
just there's a lot that I like about this team. It's just a matter of being able to actually um, get a good cohesion together and getting used to this type of seemingly hyper offensive team with I don't know.
Yeah, and looking at my rating here, I might have been a bit harsh with my rating
Mhm.
one specific category. Um, but that still being said, I like a lot of these Pokemon. Jirachi is my favorite Pokemon, right? Like I just love that mon to death. Uh,
Mhm.
but you don't break north of 120, which can be important, and
Yeah.
I feel like it does kind of have a drop off on speed because, like, I
Mhm.
mean, Hitmontop's 70, right? But after Feeny, it really does kind of speed drop off. I
Yeah.
probably took too much points off for speed when rating this team, but I don't know.
Hmm.
Like,
See, that's another thing about this. Like, I think the speed control can be there through stuff like Trick Room. I also think that
mm,
Rapid Spin, offensive Hitmontop's good, and offensive Feeny for this team, I think, can do really well. If because you have like Jirachi to be able to switch to more of a bulky role to get a wish pass off to keep Feeny healthy. And,
yeah, like I said, I don't think this team's bad, and I might have rated it a bit harshly. Each individual member on this team feels good. We've
hmm
had other teams that we've looked at where I'm like, wow, each individual member of this team is strong, but doesn't really work well together. Each individual member of this team feels strong, but can kind of work with each other. I actually like Audino a lot more than Mega Audino, you know? Uh,
yeah, feels like a waste of a mega slot, honestly.
well, and
But
then
that's
you
just
lose Regenerator, right? If I remember
hmm
correctly.
yeah,
And I don't know. Like another issue, because Haxorus doesn't get DD, correct? I don't think it does.
it does.
It does actually. Okay, never mind then.
I think it gets Sword Stance and
Cause I was gonna
Dragon
say
Dance.
I've never seen a Haxorus DD. But if it does get it, then disregard. But I was like looking at it, I'm like, Feeney's like the only setup mon I can really see really
Hmm.
well. Jirachi can do it sometimes, but like,
Yeah. It does seem kind of Jirachi dependent, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for this
no,
team.
I don't think so at all. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing either.
Yeah.
I think it's just fine. I like Hitmontop. It's a lot of good things going on with this team. I probably rated it a bit
Hmm.
harshly, but
Yeah. It's more about the potential for this team for me than anything.
All right, we good to move on to the next one?
I think so, yeah.
All right, Celta Victinis. Wonderful logo, by the way. I love this logo. And got the ever strong Mega Scissor. Lot of good Pokemon on this team,
hmm
just right off the bat, you know?
Yeah, my only, like, I guess, critique for this team would be the lack of good fairy type. Because I don't necessarily consider Klefki a fairy type. I get that it is, and it has niches like Thunder Wave, and it has the screens and everything, but it doesn't feel as if it's going to be a good fairy type. But I think that having the Mega Scizor and the Landorus give it good potential defensive options to help counteract that.
What do you mean this team's lacking good fairy type? We got Cleffa right there.
Yeah, there is Cleffa, yes. I, I also think that having a bulk-ish fire was really well for this. I
hmm
think that Delphox um, does work really well with potential Wish Pass and the Calm Mind. I think that it's a really good mon for this team, and I think that it's going to come a lot more times than it's going to sit out on the bench. I think that a lot of times you're going to see the first four mons and then Delphox and something else, like Snorlax or Klefki or
Something I
only.
specifically saw with this team is that there's a fair bit of priority running about, which is nice.
Mhm.
It tends to be a little bit on the slower end. I mean, Superiors are faster, fastest Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
And then it drops to Delphox, which I don't know. I don't think of Delphox and typically think of its speed tier too much. Uh,
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily going to be running max speed unless it's like specifically to creep base 100
hmm
mons. But other than that, I think the speed isn't necessarily that
Yeah,
important on
it'll
Delphox.
probably like speed creep like the Jirachi matchup that we were just at, right?
hmm
But
Run 329.
yeah, but outside that, like I said, there's a lot of bulk here. I feel
hmm
like it could be hard to break. It's just, you know, I think
I
what's
feel,
truly lacking for me is that one offensive threat that makes me go, wow, you either answer this Pokemon or lose immediately. Como can kind of be it, but like, and so can Serp, but like, it's kind of dependent. You know what I mean?
yeah, I don't know. I actually kind of feel the opposite about this. I feel like Como is going to be the centerpiece of this team. I feel like the way that this team's going to work out is it's going to be getting like momentum from Landorus, Scizor, Rotom Wash, potential superior momentum as well. Getting Como in to set up either Swords Dance or other types, Dragon Dance, whatever it may be. I think that it's going to set up Como is going to be coming a lot of the time.
hmm I think so as well. It's just, I don't know. I feel like setup Como can just be beaten by some
hmm
birds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which again, um, Rotom Wash does handle fairly well, and then Klefki and to a certain extent, but the lack of reliable recovery on like stuff like Landorus staying like that, like staying without Wish Pass unless it's from a Delphox or a Cleffa. I think that like expert belt like type wall breakers like a Latios, I think those can pose problems for this team. I think just like general wall breakers could hurt this team.
Yeah, and with good play, it definitely makes playoffs and could go pretty far. I think this is
Oh
going to
yeah.
be
hmm
largely dependent on not choking, you know, which is easier
Yeah.
said than done. I feel
Oh
like this
yeah. I've
team,
had that a time or two.
right? I feel like this team chokes once and it's going to be really bad.
I feel like a lot of good doubles are gonna, or doubles are getting proper momentum is going to be the key for this team's success.
I agree. All right,
That's everything for me.
let's move on to the Azoles, another strong team. Honestly,
hmm
wonderful. I see you've rated them number one, so I'm gonna let you go ahead and take it then.
Yeah, this is, I don't want to say by far, but for lack of better terms, by far my favorite team. I think the Dragon Fairy Steel Core is really, really good. And with Mega Mawile, the problem you have is it's not necessarily a fighting switch in, but Bulu can be ran defensively. I actually really do enjoy like the Leech Seed synthesis and then coverage sets on Bulu. I think that's good. And then you have a pseudo psychic switch in and Starmie. I think it getting flip turn is also going to be very nice. And it has the rapid spin to help get rid of hazards. Same with Rotom Heat with Defog. I think that like both defensively and offensively, it just synergizes very, very well. And I think Umbreon having Wish Pass to keep Zygarde, Bulu, Mawile healthy, I think is going to be very. I think this team's going to be extremely successful. That and along with its speed tiers, um, all being really well, I think this team should go very far.
I agree wholeheartedly. The speed tiers are fantastic. Umbreon is an amazing pick into this team.
Hmm.
The wishes it's going to be able to throw out and the defensive utility it provides is just the perfect mon, I think, for the rest
Hmm.
of the Pokemon here. It's going to be really nice to, if Mawile gets beaten down, to bring it back, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
I think the only thing I really docked it for was that I'm looking for 4 removers of hazards and it has 3.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
real nitpicky type stuff, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's just a matter of how you play with that. And if it weren't for the last two picks, he would be relatively weak to Scald.
Hmm.
But I think getting dry skin on the last two picks did very well. Whether that was the reason or not, I think that it worked out very well. And also managing to get rid of toxic spikes while having it on a wall
Hmm.
breaker is going to be very, very good for this team.
I agree. I think I was gonna say that there it while it is I feel like it is kind of unlikely. I did put down here in my notes that there could be a really cheeky trick room that this team could pull
Hmm.
off as well.
Yeah.
Uh, it doesn't seem like it at first because you look at the Mons and they're pretty fast across the board. I think it's
Hmm.
Miss Magius and Mawile sets it up as well, right? Or was it
I
Starmie?
don't know
I'm pretty
about
sure.
Mawile.
I'm gonna check that right now, actually.
Okay. While you do that, I'll just talk a little bit about Heliolisk because it's one of my favorite electric types just in general. I think 109 speed is great, and also getting access to both U-turn and Volt Switch is something that's really underrated from an electric type because you're able to switch out, like, say, they have a bulky ground, like, say, you go against a Gligar or something that you know is always going to be a hard check switch into Heliolisk. Well, you can either do um, like a double or what you may have it, but having access to U-turn to keep giving constant chip, even if it is negligible against something like a Gligar, just keeping the momentum forward on your team to be able to get in your answers to ground types like Bulu and Starmie and be able to wall break that way.
All right, and I was incorrect about being Mawile. It is Starmie. Miss Magius and Starmie do have access to Trick Room. Kind of weird because
Okay.
they're normally like faster, kind of frailer
Yeah.
mons. But I could see like the universe where they switch on something that's like they beat, click Trick Room,
Hmm.
the opponent switches out, and then it's just free Mawile territory, you know?
I forget whether Miss Magius gets Memento or not. I don't think it does, but potential Trick Room Memento, anything there. But yeah, I think it could be interesting, especially with
It does get
Mawile being at
Memento.
50. It does.
Yeah, it does get
Yeah.
Memento.
So I could definitely see that then to be able to get in like a 4 attack Adamant Mega Mawile to clean up some teams.
Definitely something I could see them like pulling out in like a
Hmm.
specific matchup. Doesn't seem like something they'd bring every week. It's just
Yeah.
that could be a heat set. I like this team.
Yeah, this is by far my favorite team. I hope it goes well, especially since the with the great logo design there.
Yeah, fantastic logo design. Speaking of great logo design, once again, the Mega Hornets.
Oh, yes.
Both of us agreed, number 2.
Yeah. Um I just talked about the last one if you want to go here, or I can go
I'll
again with
start it
this. It's up
off.
to you.
The
Okay.
only thing that I really don't like about this team is that Shaman is the way to break through the waters.
Yeah.
Outside that, this team's amazing. It's got all your cores, 4 setters, 4 removers for me, ground immunity. Every Pokemon here feels good into each other. Sylveon, Wish Passing for Aggron. Like, oh, there's
Hmm.
just so much good about this team. It's
Yeah, there
got
is a
perfect speed tiers in my opinion. Deoxys,
Hmm.
I actually think Deoxys speed is its weakest member, weirdly enough. But like,
Hmm.
it's a hazard Pokemon.
Yeah. See, when I first looked at this team, I had it at like 6 or 7 because when I first looked, I was like, okay, this team is fully specially offensive. Like you have Deoxys, Hydreigon, Sylveon, Keldeo, Nidoqueen. You have all these, but the more I looked at it, you can go like you have Sword Stance Keldeo. You can have like physically offensive Hydreigon. You
Hmm.
can alter these sets. So like a type of team like this is going to be really good. I feel like this team can go very far. Um, and I don't want to say it's going to be like trying to think of the words here. So between 108 and 180, I don't think Sneasel is going to be coming all that often looking at his team because you think of Sneasel as a wall breaker and he has a ton of wall breakers on his team. So I think being able to control the 120 speed mons, 115 speed mons are going to be what you want to focus on here, like being able to revenge kill those. I think like Scarf Rotom's going to be coming more often than like a Sneasel set would.
Hmm. I agree. There's just like a lot of just good. Like I said, I agree that the
Hmm.
it's definitely more specially based. Like, but every Pokemon that I think of that is like, oh, this doesn't want to see match up into a Slowking. But I'm like, then I look at the team, I'm like, but Rotom and Hydreigon. And I'm like,
Hmm.
all right, then like, uh, maybe what about like Toxapex? But I still see Aggron beating Toxapex. Like, it's like,
Yeah, especially with Wish Pass. I think Mega Aggron's very, very, very good mon, especially if you can have reliable Wish Pass with something like Sylveon.
right. So even though I think beating like a Milotic would probably be pretty difficult,
Hmm.
outside that, this team just has a lot of good going for it. I can't really knock it anywhere. It's one of the teams I have the fewer notes on because it just everything well.
Yeah. One thing I might knock it for would be the lack of momentum outside of something like the Rotom coming, because you have Hydreigon, but again, if you're running like a spec set, you're gonna have like 3 special attacks in U-turn. But again, it seems very niche momentum wise, like flip turn
Hmm.
Keldeo. But I think good doubles are going to be very important for this team to succeed.
All right, and then we got the Heracrosses coming in right afterwards. Another well-placed team. We both kind of agree on their placement here.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of biased towards this team. My first and only championship that I can recall, I had Megalopony, Zapdos, and Serena all on it. So that I'm a little biased in that sense. Granted, this was before Heavy Duty Boots was a thing. So,
And I'm a
but
little biased as well. I really like Noivern. I really like Togekiss. I like Bisharp.
mhm,
And I think Lopunny is cool. I mean, who doesn't like Megalopony, realistically?
that's
But
true, especially with U-turn now. But
right
I
with
think
U-turn,
this,
it makes them on insane.
I think this team's speed tiers are really, really, really good. But the one problem I can see with the speed tiers is having to run max speed Togekiss when you want to bring it bulky.
Mm.
Potentially. But other than that, like I don't really see very many flaws with this team. I just think that Togekiss is going to come bulky a lot more than it's going to want to just because they need to keep Seismitoad um alive.
I agree. It probably will come bulky, at least max HP, right?
Hmm.
Because I think the Togekiss Bisharp pairing is a really cool pairing, actually.
Hmm.
I think those two Pokemon play very well off of each other, kind of cover each other's weaknesses. And then you just got
Yeah.
Lopunny to punch holes, Zapdos to be generally good, Gengar to be Gengar. Like, oh, what else can I really say?
Yeah.
Uh,
I also really like his hazard stacking option with Seismitoad to Selgor and having Defiant on Bisharp to punish Defog, and then
mm,
Gengar to be able to switch into rapid spins or stuff like that. I think hazards are going to be very difficult to play against this team with.
yeah. Is there a rapid spinner on this team? I don't believe so, right?
Serena.
Serena is a rapid spinner. Actually, if this team didn't have a rapid spinner, then it would be a little bit more awkward.
Hmm.
Uh, because you don't really want to defog your hazards away all the time
Yeah.
if you're playing this team. But with Serena,
Hmm.
it's just fine. I
I
think
think this team's
pretty
going to be
cool.
very good. Yeah.
And I think I'm done talking about this team. Quick, the point.
Mm,
Yeah, anything else to
yeah.
say?
No, I think I'm good actually. The only thing I might add would be potentially like psychics that have really good like coverage moves being a problem, like any psychic type that can reliably click focus blast or anything like something like a Reuniclus could
Maybe like a
potentially be a
Tapu
problem.
Lele.
Hmm.
Tapu Lele specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but other than that,
Was Lele drafted? I don't think I remember seeing it though.
it hasn't been on the teams we've listed so far. I don't. It probably wasn't. I don't remember actually. So
Crazy.
that is crazy actually.
All right.
But
Well,
yeah, I'm done.
let's move on here. The Crocodile Crew. I see we have some polarizing opinions here.
Hmm.
I like this team a lot. A little bit of bias in the Murkrow. Uh, Wonderful logo once again. I love that the Ampharos has a transparent, non-transparent background. Can I just point that out? It's got like the fake transparent background. Amazing.
Hmm.
But actually getting into
Love
the
it.
team, um, missing a psychic type, which is, not the end of the
Hmm.
world. Um, but I think where I docked it was there is no grounded poison, and their speed tier is a little bit janky.
Hmm.
Not the most jank that we've seen, but a
Yeah,
little bit, you know?
it just feels kind of awkward, from my opinion on this team. I think not having a bulky psychic is going to be not very well. I think it's going to be very Gliscor reliant because, like, other than Gliscor, the fighting switch in is not there because Shiinotic, I don't think is. It probably doesn't even switch into like close combats very well. I get that it has strength up, but that's one thing. I think like offensive fightings are like the ways that a lot of teams win the game. And you have Spectre to switch into it, but I think
But
keeping
most
Gliscor
offensive
healthy.
fightings have knockoff, right? Like,
Hmm. There's just like I want to like this team. Like I see the first three picks, I'm like, okay, I can get it. Like I really like this, but I think it's just it feels like something's missing there,
I
and
feel
I
like
really do.
Spectre could be spent better.
Hmm. I really do like the Blissey though. That's the one thing I say. I think Blissey Gliscor is going to be very do very well, and I also
For 1 point, I think Murkrow was a fantastic pick for this team, though.
mhm.
It's a really good one
I think
point mon.
that one gets prank. Murkrow gets prankster, right?
Yeah, Prankster Defog, stuff
Hmm.
like that. Prankster Haze, even, I think.
Yeah. And I am kind of biased towards Mienshao, as I really do like that mon. But another thing that I like didn't really particularly like about this team is Gliscor or Scizor potentially being forced to defog. Like Murkrow is going to come probably at least once or twice, but I think it's more niche to where you're going to want to bring like a Sword Stance Scissor, but you need defog, so you bring Murkrow.
And I know you touched on Shiinotic just a little bit earlier,
Hmm.
but uh, they kind of are able to push through your bulky waters, kind of not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Zebstrika, sure. Shiinotic,
Yeah.
sure.
I'm just glad that their fire type is neutral to water because Zard can be one of those mons that can be run bulky reliably.
Especially X.
Hmm. Yeah, that and Storm Drain on Gastrodon. I don't think water types are going to be as big a problem. I mean,
I
they
mean,
definitely are
I
going
don't,
to be.
I don't see them being a
But
problem immediately. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh, but over a long period of time,
yeah.
this team could get stalled out. I feel like.
I feel just like waters with reliable recovery are going to be a problem here.
Yeah. Like Scissor is cool, but
But
then he gets scalded at some point. You
mhm,
know.
there are some good uh, mons on this team that I've kind of been down, like dogging on it. But I am a real big fan of Zardex, and I think that if you set it up right and trap appropriately with Doug Trio, like to be able to whittle down, then you can set up with Zard and
This is the team I
get a couple
want to
wins.
see do the best, the
Hmm.
most. You know, it's like the team. I'm like, mean, I really want to see this team succeed. Whether or not it will,
Hmm.
that's a different question.
I guess only time will tell.
All right. And then we have the Duraludons. Is that how you pronounce that?
I always say Duraludon, but I don't know. I haven't watched anything or heard anything with that name, so.
I've never seen it either, but that makes sense how that's pronounced in my head because I
Hmm.
can't see it be Duraludons.
Hmm.
Moving to the actual
But
team, though, we both have
yeah,
it at 14th.
yeah. I'll go ahead and start here with this one. This is the type of team like I look at it and like I wish I had the guts to draft some of these mons. Like Breloom, like I've always wanted to draft it, but I've never gone around to it. It just feels like every time I get to like, oh no, I can't draft Breloom. I need like momentum. But that and Curum is a very good mon. I've just very rarely used it, and it's one that I want to try in the future. But looking at like the actual team, I feel like the lack of reliable recovery is going to be a very big problem for this team.
Can I point
Um,
something out about this team? Can I just
Go
interject?
for it. Go for it.
Something that really stands out to me about this team, there's the obvious synergy of Torkoal Shiftry, right?
Hmm.
You got your Chlorophyll, Sun, Core there, right?
Yeah.
And then I look at every other Pokemon on this team, and I feel like, oh god, Celesteela doesn't want to be in the sun. Vaporeon's now getting neutered. Greninja doesn't want
Yeah.
to be there either. Like, oh, it hurts Piloswine. It hurts Breloom.
Yeah.
It feels
Shiftry
like
does feel kind of awkward.
it feels like a non-bow having Torkoal Shiftry. You know what I mean?
See, I feel like the only reason Shiftry was drafted, looking at his team, was to have a defogger. Like it doesn't really clear hazards very well. Torkoal gets spin and Mega Diancie gets magic bounce, but again, even that's situational. So I feel like Shiftry was drafted purely because it could click defog.
And then Celesteela is your only ground immunity,
Hmm. Yeah.
which
Oh, you've got the very bulky Breloom.
you do. Breloom can be run surprisingly bulky. You know, you have Poison Hill. He's like a mini Glysacore. You know,
Yeah.
just just Leech Seed and sub up and just annoy your opponent to death for 30 turns.
See, now if Breloom had Synthesis, I feel like a lot of people would be drafting it more because it could be able to run like bulky sets like that, and it could truly be like a bulkish ground type, but a grass type, I mean.
Yeah.
But I think this team can do well. I think Mega Diancie is going to be heavily relied on, and I think
Yep.
that.
And with Magic Bounce too, because like the hazard
Mhm.
game, they have good setting. They can't remove them very well.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just a matter of getting a substitute off with Kyurem or getting +2 on Mega Diancie or Celesteela. I feel like it's just going to be you're going to need to sweep with one of your special wall breakers and go from there.
Once again, I don't see this team not picking up any wins either, right?
Hmm.
It definitely will. It's just, hmm,
It just feels like something's not there, lack of
right?
better term.
It and it just yeah, it just feels like something's not there.
At least it can kill bulky waters though, which other teams cannot
Yeah,
necessarily
that tends to be
be said about.
like a reoccurring theme here in Hoenn is that bulky waters are going to be an issue. And it does have Vaporeon, so who knows?
Yeah. But
All
that's
right,
all I've got for that team.
the yellow Yatsubas. One, the pun. Two, I don't know who that character is, but I'm assuming her name's Yatsuba.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the pun. Uh, 11th, 10th.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels really awkward. I looked at the team and I saw Tyranitar Dracovish and got excited, and then there was just a lot missing, and I was not very impressed anymore after I looked at it. Like the speed tiers was one thing that really got to me. Like you're really relying on Sandrush, Dracovish, Stoutland to be able to like go through and break your mons.
I mean, you have Latios. There's a lot of like really threatening Pokemon on this team, right? And there even
Hmm.
is like the synergy there because you have Clefable, you got your Latios. It's a really good start. You got your Titar, your Dracovish. Fantastic. Um, I don't know. Golurk and Aegislash feel a little redundant.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why Golurk was taken here, other than maybe there was just a lack of ground types later in the draft. I don't
Mhm.
really know how that went there, but I think Shadow Punch and Earthquake. I like Golurk more as a wall breaker, more than just having like a bulky ground type. And I think that Sigilyph is also kind of awkward. Again, I don't know what was available at the time of the draft, but I think it makes pseudo speed tiers look kind of weird. Because like if you don't have Sigilyph there, you don't really have anything from between 85 and 110 other than
And then if we run
that.
into the same issue again with all of Hoenn. You have this monster of Dracovish, right? Just like the monster Darmglar. And then your water breaker is Rotom Fan.
Yeah, I feel like Sigilyph could have been better spent on a grass type, and that is a pattern that after like we've looked at this has been reoccurring. Like just having like a cheap value grass to be able to switch in and handle the water types is going to be would be great value. It's just not there. But that does have a lot of threatening mons. Great Dragon Fairy Steel Core. Unfortunately, no grass type, but I think Infernape Dracovish are good offensively to help break through for this team to hopefully get some wins.
Anything else you want to add here? I mean, you've been most of talking on this team. I guess I could add in like the speed tiers could be better, but you have sand, no
Yeah,
water killer. I feel like it's kind of pushing it through, missing your grass mon, no grounded poison. It's just
there's just a couple holes, and I think that speed tiers is going to be kind of hard to make up, but we'll see as the season goes on. I think Jupiter is going to come more than it wants to.
All right, then I think we're good to move on, yeah?
Yep.
All right, then I guess it's just our final thoughts on Hoenn, right?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and just make like a general comment here. I think, again, we've kind of touched based on this as we've done the teams here. I think that bulky waters are going to be a big problem for a lot of teams here, which generally is the case, but I think even more so now because not a lot of good grass and electric types necessarily went on all the teams. Like you have coverage there, but it just doesn't feel as good as it probably should for some teams.
And teams that are going to be able to leverage their water types are really just going to be. I feel like we could see average games against said teams go into like the 80 turns plus range, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Uh, that's what I would do if it was like a sure but like slow but definite win, you know?
Hmm.
Which
After,
could be draining.
yeah, I feel like a lot of these games could potentially get stalled out just because of stuff like that. And now that I'm like going through and looking back on the teams here, like you have bulky water, like on say that your number one team, where their bulky water is Blastoise. Like if you don't have something to break through something like Blastoise, then you're not going to be able to break through like a Toxapex or a Melodic or I don't I don't think Jellicent was drafted, but that would be another example of one.
I don't think Alomomola was either, but once again, that would be another
But it looks like
example.
some of these teams that watch the video realize that bulky waters are going to be a problem. Maybe someone will pick up
Yeah,
Jellicent or
there's still some good mons out there, right? That can like
mhm,
answer them, you know?
yeah. I
Uh,
just hope that some teams cover those weaknesses, like earthquake weaknesses, for teams that have like Vespiquen as their earthquake switch in. But I just feel that free agents are going to be in high demand for the first couple weeks after people realize
yeah,
um,
once people start
there's some
feeling
holes in
out
their
their
team.
teams and been like,
Hmm.
wow, I just lost to this same thing 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row, you know? Like,
Hmm.
then we'll definitely see that coming through.
Yeah.
But outside
Again.
that, I feel like the top five teams are really strong. I don't know about you.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel um, like top four, top five teams are all really
I feel
good,
like
and
there's like
there's
a
like,
like a steep drop off
hmm
from
yeah,
power
once
right
you
there.
hit, yeah. So, your number one team was my seven, but like eight down, like
Yeah, we
they
at least
don't feel
agreed
very good
mostly on
compared.
our like 2 to 4, right? Like
Hmm.
so.
Yeah, it was. Hmm.
Oh, I don't know. But I think that
Other
about wraps
than
it up, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, other than that, I don't necessarily have any other final thoughts. I hope that everyone who does watch this video realizes that these are just our opinions on our team. That doesn't mean that it's based off your success with your team, or that if we disagree with your opinions on your team, then that's just, again, that's our opinion, and we hope that we didn't hurt anyone if they're watching this and like think that their team is very, very good,
Yeah,
and we
and
might have had a different opinion.
I'm gonna say it right here. I think coach skill way out values like team composition, right?
Oh
I
yeah, for
think a
sure.
very good coach with a very bad team most of the time will beat a very good team with a very bad coach, right? So
Oh yeah,
a lot of room for variance, you know?
yeah. This is just more for fun on our part, getting to look at people's teams and um, just go through and analyze it, learn more about some mons that we didn't know before, like Serena getting rapid spin and different opinions from different people.
And I will be posting my personal rankings in text format afterwards after this video goes live. So uh, there's always that as well. Um,
Hmm.
if you're looking to patch up your holes and you don't want to re-listen to your entire segment, or you want to get like a quick read on what your opponent might be packing,
Hmm.
yeah,
That,
I'll
or
be there.
if any coaches like had any opinions about their team that they wanted to talk about with me, you're more than welcome to just message me on Discord and send those my way if you want any advice on how to help or anything like that.
Same. I'm always open to help people build their teams. All right, then I guess we'll wrap this on up, and then on you and I will have to do Sinnoh next.
Yes.
All right,
So,
catch you all around.
yep. See ya.